Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Wilson, and I am CEO and co-founder of Hamachi. I'm joined today by my good friend, Joe Mallen. Joe is CEO of Modelist. We're excited to tell you more about how Modelist has integrated with Hamachi and what that means by way of portfolio intelligence at your fingertips and available within your workflows. Really quick, I'm going to do a very high level intro of Hamachi, even though I know most of you already know about Hamachi, so I'll keep it quick. Then Joe's going to talk some more about Modelist, and then we'll do a mutual demo that will show you how this works in action. So really quick on Hamachi. Sorry, I lost my slide. I'll go without a deck. So Hamachi is built on kind of three key pillars. Pillar number one is guardrails. When we built Hamachi, we recognized that the wealth management industry and financial services wanted to use AI in many different ways, but first and foremost, you had to have the guardrails in place to make sure that you could use it securely. And the first component of those guardrails means PII protection. So we have a patent actually on the way that we redact all PII from any large language model, from any AI, to make sure that your name, your client's name, their tax IDs, their account numbers, all that detail is completely obscured. So you can rest assured if you're uploading a statement or integrating with a portfolio management system or looking at a trust document, all that content is completely protected in transit and redacted from any large language model, any AI model. The second component of our guardrails revolves around compliant language. So anytime that you use Hamachi to produce an email, to help you write a white paper, to write a social media post, all of that content runs through a rigorous SEC and FINRA compliance agent that we built that makes sure that the language that you're producing inside of Hamachi is consistent and in alignment with marketing rules and regs. You can go a step further and actually add in your own controls on top of that. The last part of the compliance and guardrails pillar is related to the way that we store and retain all historical interactions that you've had with AI inside of Hamachi. Our opinion is that regulators don't just care what you're asking of AI, but they care about what you're sending to AI, what you're sharing with AI. Remember what I mentioned before about the PII redaction, as well as they want to make sure that anything that the AI responded to, any way that they assisted in your messaging to clients or even in your own business, that you check to make sure that that is accurate. And Hamachi gives you all those controls within our guardrails offering inside Hamachi. That's pillar number one. Pillar number two is what we refer to as household context. That's where we integrate with all of your systems, whether that's CRM, portfolio management, planning. We pull all that data together, and now you're able to engage with that information in ways that you never have before through natural language, through AI and generating insights, bubbling up opportunities. There's a million different ways that you can use AI, as you can imagine, when you're able to harness your entire book of business in a way that you never have before. And the third guardrail, this is where Joe and Modelist fit squarely into what we're doing at Hamachi. This is what we refer to as our expert agents or our expert bots. And those bots can be agents that you create yourself for your own business. Maybe you want to rely on some of the agents that we pre-created. Think about that FINRA and SEC compliance agent I mentioned before. Or in the case of Modelist, Modelist has produced and continues to produce more agents specific to the model methodologies that they've created and their practice. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Joe. He can tell you about more Modelist, and I'm super excited to share with all of you. We're excited to share with all of you about how these agents work in practice and what they're going to be to your business.
Yeah, no, Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that was perfect. And I think, in our business, we're huge fans of AI. We use it all day, every day. But we understand our clientele, our advisors, and where we see utilization going forward with advisors, it's going to be heavily scrutinized and around all of the things that Mike addressed. And, frankly, we've thought, do we build our own AI agent in our solution? And, everyone's got their own AI agent and bot, Schwab, Fidelity, et cetera. But we love what Hamachi's doing. We see it almost as, I use the term of like, they're the hub, and let us just be a spoke and feed data into an agent that's already adapt to handle all those concerns we have. So us and our clients, advisor clients, don't have to really worry about all of those things, and let Hamachi kind of be at the forefront of creating a good experience. So with that, I'll give a quick overview on Modelist. I think most folks on the call know who we are. If not, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to talk about what we do as a business, but we do custom model portfolios for independent advisors. So we put an emphasis on building portfolios, model designs, and everything in the best interest of the financial advisor firm. We have no product. We have no funds to sell you. We have no really incentive to push you into a direction that doesn't make sense for your practice. So why we do that, how we do it, we want to really improve your investment narrative at your firm. We think many folks come from a world of either just doing models themselves, which is fine, but we ask 3 questions. Are you good at it? Do you enjoy it? And do you have time for it? And I think most advisors kind of come to that conclusion that I could use help with this, but we felt the options provided to you by the industry, none of them spoke to advisor practice first. They're all conduits for products, or they're black box third-party strategies with their own funds inside of them, and you're selling somebody else. So we sought to really disrupt that whole paradigm. So we hope you get an improved investment narrative by working with us. Everything we do is white label to the practice and the advisor that we're working with. We take the models and we put them where it makes most sense for you. Do you want to trade them? Do you want to run them through your TAMP? Or do you want to have tax overlay, direct indexing incorporated with the models that we build? And we try to do all of this at a cost, total cost of ownership to your client, that is less than other solutions in the industry. We think we can get expense ratios low. We charge a low fee relative to competitors. And then if you outsource trading, you can get all sorts of advantages like tax overlay, et cetera, that really provides that value. The last thing I'll show here is really kind of that matrix of, we call it, firm valuation matrix. So you have your folks in the bottom left here that are typically wirehouse type advisors that sell what the company's selling. Many folks have figured out the scale part of this matrix by outsourcing to third-party model providers, but we tend to think of those folks as really reselling somebody else. Folks to the right really put their brand forward and do something highly custom, but too often that's not scalable. You have different portfolios for every client. We like to drive people up and to the right, and that's where we can provide custom, white-labeled, scalable models for your practice that provides a lot of enterprise value for your firm, not for ours. And, lastly, I said that was last, but here's last. How does it work? We get to know you, who you are, what your fund preferences are. We want to think of you deciding to work with us, not like ripping off a Band-Aid. There'll be continuity, there'll be narrative retention, and you'll have a lot of control as to how your models are designed. We tap into all of these libraries of rules-based model design that we've built. Kent, our CIO, is a PhD from Princeton, used to work at Bridgewater, brilliant global macro mind, and myself coming from a TAMP world and looking at all the third-party solutions out there. We sought to, let's give these away to advisors for free. Let's allow them to have access to the IP with full transparency and build models that work specifically for them. We refine and collaborate. Nothing is, we try not to have any ego in the process. We just want to sit at your side of the table. We then build your marketing deck, update market content, and this is going to go a lot into our conversation today of, what we build for you is very specific to you, the holdings. We support that with weekly, monthly, ad hoc market updates that aren't just about overviews of the market, but coincide what's going on in your client portfolios. And then ongoing, we can always make edits. We can add new models. We can, do qualified, non-qualified iterations, but we look at it as an ongoing partnership to be able to service your entire investment platform. We just do all that. So with that, we're really excited today to show you how we take that info and we can actually create what Mike said is a bot, not only for Modelist content, so you're able to ping and ask questions of Hamachi in regards to how do I communicate this, what's happening in the market to my client, or what if gold rises, what's that going to do to my portfolio? But then we also feed very specific content of the models we built for you with the naming conventions, et cetera, to ask another series of questions as far as, what is my exposure to NVIDIA in my account? And we'll show you a lot of those examples today. But that's why we've wanted to forge this partnership, is because they have the really amazing engine at the front end. They have the integrations to the parts that you need. We just want to be an integration partner and be able to feed the appropriate level of information to Hamachi.
Thanks, Joe. And when I think about your business and the level of customization that you're providing to advisors in these scalable portfolios that you're creating for them, it just like the synergy between your business and the types of things we're doing at Hamachi, it's so tight, it's so tightly coupled and so aligned. I love that. Mm-hmm. What I'm going to do now is I'll just do kind of a very brief generalized demo of Hamachi, and then I'll pass it back over to Joe so you all can see like the magic of what happens when you bring in these agents that Modelist has created. So you'll see here Hamachi. This is going to look and feel very much like ChatGPT or Claude. But where things start to happen that feel a little bit different is when I come in and I say, well, all these different skills that are very specific to wealth management. So I could say, give me a daily dossier. Let me search for my household. This particular instance of Hamachi is connected to Salesforce. We also have connections with Redtail. We're building an integration with Wealthbox. So all these different third-party tools that you are familiar with, we are either integrated with today or we are building integrations with. I could quite easily go in here and run a compliance check on a certain white paper maybe that was created. These expert bots, this is where Modelist will come in. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, but I could quite easily go in here and say, give me a daily dossier, and you'll see in real time, we're going to reach out to Salesforce, pull in a ton of information about our book of business, and then given this skill, produce some insights that are relevant to my business today. This will just take a couple seconds to produce. While that's happening, I want to mention really quick on the back end, of course, we are storing, logging all this information per those guardrails that I mentioned before, that you can always go back in time and see what was requested, what was sent over the wire. How did we know that was accurate in the response and so forth. And you see really quickly here, we get this wonderful daily dossier that says, here's 3 different households that should be contacted in 3 different ways. One of which is this Jansen household who has got $2 million of uninvested cash that you should probably consider throwing over to Modelist to help you out with. And I can do anything from this analysis. I could step into a household. I could say, well, let me look at this Jansen household. Tell me about their uninvested cash. Or maybe I could say something like, write a quick note about the Iran war for this household. The sources such as, I don't know, something, anything that you wanted to do specific to this household. And you'll see that, here again, we'll go off and we'll rip through the household in Salesforce or Redtail, as it were, or in Tomorrowland, Wealthbox, helping to gather that context. And then, per our multi-agent orchestration, we can go off and then run a web query and very specifically like put together a wonderful output that would be highly relevant to this household in real time. The reason I'm picking on this Iran war at this point, it's top of mind for many of us. I'm sure if you're watching this video, or I'm hoping if you're watching this video 3 months from now, it will be ancient history. I think we all are, but who knows? But here you can see really quickly we produced this output. It cited those resources that we wanted to use, and it goes through and it puts together a really nice analysis for them. I don't need to get too in the weeds on this particular case, other than the fact that I want to point out that it runs through the SEC check, runs through a FINRA check. It found a medium issue with its initial response. You can tune Hamachi to strip this out, and I can go back and I could say, you know what, give me a version that has no medium concerns. Before I pass it back to Joe, super quick, I do want to show you a few things. One, you can determine what regulatory status you have applied. Two, you can have PII anonymization turn on, as I mentioned before. And then three, if I were to go into my user, you can see here's that exact question that I asked, and here's exactly what was responded to. So you always have these available at your fingertips. We have many more integrations, including an Outlook integration that we're not going to get into today during this specific session. We'd be happy to address at a later point. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to pass it back to Joe, and he could show you again how the Modelist agents embedded inside of Hamachi make this fire.
Awesome. There we go. And I love the example that Mike showed. That's the type of thing I think many advisors, absent of having an entire investment department in their practice, often struggle to answer. And how we think of the bots that we've built into your Hamachi. So you'll see here, we have, in general, 2 bots. One's going to be the Modelist research bot. This is going to be everything about our platform, including how we're thinking about the markets right now, the weekly reports, the monthly reports, the library of strategies we have. This bot will help you do things like research different strategies that we have on our platform, but also draft content in regards to market updates. The next bot is going to be something built very specific. So this will say ABC Wealth Management Bot. Your name of your firm is ABC Wealth Management. And with that, it's going to have the unique designs of your models, the narratives, the marketing pitches, the holdings, the exposure, the back test, all of those things associated with that bot. So it's going to run you through just some examples by just having the Modelist research bot. We could say something like, what strategies help me manage around inflation data? So this is effectively you asking the platform, the Modelist platform, for information on strategies that utilize inflation data. So you can see it there thinking through all of the different options, plucking ones that attack it in a different way, and ultimately it will field a response. And we really tend to like the way the responses are drafted because they're written in kind of human terms. It's answering the questions in the way that I think you're looking for the information to be provided, not like, because our typical solution to this question would be, give us a call, we'll pull up a screen, we'll show you through 5 or 6 different things. And I think that's generally overload. But here, a practical way to manage inflation data is to separate the problem into inflation exposure, rate sensitivity, and behavioral discipline. Modelist has a direct strategy called inflation expectations, where it uses 1-year inflation expectations from the Federal Reserve of Cleveland to adjust its allocations, and it will tell you how it does that. For bond duration risk, we have a duration management strategy. For Fed policy sensitivity, we have a Fed rate expectation strategy. For broader resilience, we have an all-weather adjustment, which uses a vol weighting across asset allocation. That's one way to really tap into the research. Another thing, similar to what Mike asked, was give me a quick post for LinkedIn that shows our view of Fed policy right now. And where this is different from pulling from just the ether of the internet, this is pulling from our data, how we've communicated to you, how we're thinking about inflation, or how we're thinking about Fed policy right now, how those narratives are being crafted and how they relate to, your portfolio. So,
something I want to point out really quick while you're doing this, Joe, that I love is the intersection between our multi-agent orchestrator and what you're showing is that what we can do is we can glean information from a client based on their holdings, their portfolio holdings, and their CRM for a current client. There's CRM interactions, so those are, think of them as being case notes or transcripts. If they said anything or indicated anything about inflation, these are the types of things that we could automatically reference from the Modelist research bot.
Yep. So here's a post. The Fed appears to be firmly on hold for now. Sticky inflation and resilient economic data have reduced the case for near-term rate cuts, reinforcing a higher for longer policy. I think you can read the rest of it, but the idea here is let's make your life easy. Like, how do you use your investment department that Modelist is driving for you to do better engagement with the client, better social media, better transparent interaction with each of your clients. So that's that. Those are kind of like I would categorize into the just general Modelist research. But here, let me ask a question that might be more specific to what you're doing. So, what model should I recommend for a client who is conservative and wants a high level of income? So now this is tapping to the models we built for you. It can be 5, it can be 25. Each of them have different characteristics, different yields, different expense ratios, different holdings. So we can ask high-level positioning type questions such as, what model is best for this of what I'm looking for? And in this case, it gave us an income-focused conservative model. It's designed for income generation and capital preservation. It's benchmarked to 25% equity. Average yield right now is 0.01% as of 4/30. And then it gives you a lot of the other, just narrative. And then they frame it as, for a conservative income-oriented investor, income-focused conservative may be appropriate if the client can tolerate moderate drawdowns, credit exposure, and income variability in exchange for a higher income profile than traditional. So love that. And say, what are the So I asked it, what are the tickers and the names in the portfolio right now? And here you'll go. You'll see all of the various holdings, and you can ask it a lot of questions like, what's the equity exposure today? What's the expense ratio? It just has access to all of that information that you might want to ask a question of. And lastly, I know we're kind of cutting close on time. What if I did both? I'm going to take Mike's question. With the war in Iran, how is my moderate tactical model reacting to let's say the news? And now this ideally is going to blend just like some high level like logic that we think of as a platform, as an investor, that don't react to knee-jerk news, stick to your guns, look at data. So it's going to take part of that narrative, but then also bring in the specifics of your individual models and hopefully interweave those into a great response. Something that would be near copy and paste if this was coming in from a client. So your moderate tactical model does not appear to be making headline-driven trades. The model's rules-based, non-discretionary, not discretionary by headline. It adjusts exposure using momentum, economic indicators, yield curve dynamics, credit spreads, yada, yada, yada. It remains meaningfully invested, 64% in stock, 32% in bonds. The model is broad market commentary, treating Iran primarily as a risk transmission issue, oil inflation expectations, treasury yields, Fed policy, and credit, rather than an automatic reason to de-risk. The model staying disciplined and signal driven, not reacting emotionally to the war. All of the things that we would likely say if we fielded this response directly. So we're again very excited about all of the things it can do, and we're also learning too what's the best level of information we can feed into the bots to make the types of questions you need us to reply to. How can we feed the best amount of data and the cleanest data in order to give you the best responses? So
thanks, Joe. That's wonderful. And you think about like what a ChatGPT or Claude are very good at, and that's to be generalist. But when you want to talk about a specific model allocation, when you want to dig in on the specific investment philosophy, that's where agents, like what Modelist is built on top of Hamachi, that's when they're incredibly powerful. The one thing that I pointed to a couple minutes ago is around kind of that household context element. In the previous example that Joe shared, where he looked at what model would be right for what did you say, Joe, for like a moderate investor?
Yeah, conservative investor that wants a high level of income.
Conservative. So those qualifiers, that persona, they can be inferred based on whatever information is in a CRM and a portfolio management system. So think about this as becoming like a proposal tool as well. So you load up a client or prospect. If you have any information about their risk profile or about their current holdings, and you have the Modelist agent, you can quite easily say which Modelist portfolio is right for this person and why, compare and contrast against their current holdings. And we put together a beautiful proposal for you in a matter of seconds. So I would love for any of you to give that a shot.
Yeah, I think another great use case, like you described, is, hey, I didn't know this. I pull up my account. My client sold 3% of this fund and bought 3% of this fund. Ask Hamachi why. It'll tap into our background, our logic, everything, and give you a curated response as to exactly why that move happened in the portfolio. And those are the real life use cases that we think this can be pretty amazing for, rather than just the generics when you log into a ChatGPT or Claude.
If you have any questions, if you'd like to get a demo, get your hands on a free trial of Hamachi, please reach out. You can visit our website, Hamachi.ai, to get that information and to sign up for a free trial. You can also reach out to us at info@Hamachi.ai. We'd love to work with you. Joe, please, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yeah, check us out you can either email hello@modelist.me, N-E. That's the best way. That'll hit our inbox. Check us out on our website, www.modelist.me, LinkedIn. Yeah. No, the only thing is, if you Google it, you might come across a Turkish fashion magazine. So don't click that one, but we're probably number 2 on the list. So yeah, reach out, send us an email.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye then.